Please be seated. Well, good morning again.
Morning.
Quite some readings we have today, aren't they? Holy Cross, you don't have what it takes. We don't have what it takes. At least not to be a real disciple of Jesus. Does not your heart confirm this to be the truth of you whenever you hold yourself up next to this gospel lesson today? This lesson where Jesus says, to be my disciple, you must hate your father, your mother, your spouse, your children, brothers, sisters. Yes, you must hate life itself if you are to be my disciple. And also that infamous line, you must give up all your possessions, seems clear. We don't have what it takes. It's not only here that Jesus does this, that the Bible does this. We read about Moses and the giving of the law a minute ago. Well, whenever that law gets in the hands of Jesus, he doesn't make it easier for us. Jesus takes the law, and scholars describe it in this way. They say he builds a hedge around the law that's so high no one could ever imagine getting over it. He takes the commandment, thou shalt not commit adultery, and he says, you've heard it, do not commit adultery. But I tell you, if you even look at another person with lust, you have committed adultery. He does this with several laws. We're not good enough. How dare he? I mean, we're pretty good people, aren't we? I mean, I've been with you guys for a month now. This is my month anniversary. And y'all are awesome. I'm so grateful to be amongst you in your midst. Does he not know us at all? I think he does, doesn't he? George is an 86 or 87-year-old, 88-year-old man who is a retired Navy pilot. He is one of my favorite people in the world. He used to be one of my parishioners, and now he is just family. He is one of you all's father, by the way, by happenstance. George has let me know on numerous occasions how much things like this just get under his skin in the Bible. He says, I have reported to duties on Sundays, every Sunday. I studied, I prayed, I served, I've given, and yet still, my heart confirms it. I don't have what it takes. He says, I wish Jesus would have, this is one of my favorite of his quotes, I wish Jesus would have left a discipleship for dummies version of his gospel so that knuckleheads like me could get it. This is one of the reasons why George is so special to me. He is one of those rare and courageous people who are not afraid to admit that they don't have what it takes. They don't have what it takes to figure this God of ours out and to fix whatever's wrong inside of us. I used to tell George that if he ever thought he did have what it takes to fix it, then turn around and go the other way, because you're probably the furthest away from God that you've ever been. Because here's the thing. Christianity, the way of Jesus Christ, is not a way of living that a person follows so that one day, when they follow long enough or with all of their heart, they become a good enough person so that they no longer need Jesus anymore. That is not the way of sanctification. That is not the way of transformation. That's not the way to Christianity or of God. You will always need Jesus. And you will never have what it takes without him. This becomes clear that this is what Jesus is trying to say to us in these insulting readings that he gives us today, lesson that he gives us today. It becomes clear whenever you put it in the context of what goes on around it in this section of teaching. Just after this, Jesus tells the parable of the prodigal son. Parable most all of us are familiar with, the one where the son takes the inheritance, which he had not earned, but takes the gifts of the Father early, and he goes off to a foreign land, and he squanders them and hurts himself and others until finally he's broke, right? And it is then when he's broke and he's powerless to help himself, that is when he returns to the Father's love, to the help he needs, to the source of all goodness. And just before, that was just after our reading, just before our reading is another great parable of the great banquet. It's the one that where the man throws a great banquet and he invites all these people and they don't come. And so when they won't come, he turns to the poor and to the lame and to the broken and the sick. Why does he turn to them? Well, because he knows they'll come, right? He knows that in your need, in your poverty, when you know your poverty, then you will turn to the source of blessing, to the banquet, and receive the gifts which he has to offer you. Jesus, he really does want us to hear today that we don't have enough, that we are broke and broken, and our priorities are out of place. Our hearts long for the wrong things. He wants us to realize that we don't have what it takes, so we will stop trying it alone, stop using our gifts in self-centered ways that only end up leaving us empty, to stop and return to the banquet, to the Father. So the thing that's left for us today, if we can hear him say that and our hearts sort of confirm this as the truth, the things that's left for us today is to try and understand really, how do we need Jesus? How do you really need God in your life? Not only in here, but regardless of where you are, who you are, out there. How do you need Jesus? It's really a question about death, I think. But it's death in two ways. First, it's the obvious sense of death, which is that last day, which we all will face, for none of us are getting out of here alive, right? And no matter how much you earn and build for yourself here, when we go through that door of death, all physicality, all physical is left behind and we're stripped away. So there's nothing we can do to help ourselves. In a very real way, we need God to save us so that death does not have a victory over us. Only Jesus can save us. But secondly, is a less obvious sense, but an equally important, perhaps, sense of death, and that is a living death. Jesus comes not only to save us from the death on that last day, but he comes to save us from a living death, doesn't he? A death of isolation and fear and worry. What is it that is sucking the life out of your life? That is the question. What is it that we are trying to control that we simply cannot control, and it's killing us with worry and fear? What is it that we are trying to accomplish with such dedication and perfection that it can only come from a sense of fear, of failure, and being labeled as such and discarded as trash? Are you smothered with grief today? Drowning in worry, anxiety about our own future or our country's? We can't do it alone. We can't make it through this life living as he created us to live, living as we desire to live, as free, joyful creatures, loving God, loving neighbors, living courageously. We can't do it. We need Jesus. We need him not only to save us from our death, but from our living death. As our opening collect prayed, our opening prayer prayed, grant us, O Lord, to trust in you with all our hearts. Grant us, O Lord, to trust in you with all our hearts. For as you always resist the proud who confide in their own strength, you never forsake those who make their boast of your mercy. We cannot do it. Let us recognize our poverty and turn to Jesus and watch the impossible. Watch what is impossible for you be made possible. In my life, there is nothing that builds my faith more than those moments. Each and every week when we return here to this Eucharistic feast, this banquet feast which Jesus commanded us to do, let us remember that when we come and I invite you to come broken and with empty hands to receive what you need in faith. And then take faith and go in peace, trusting that the God who knows your poverty will mercifully come to help you. How is it that you need Jesus today?